In my last video, I used a phrase while discussing about why gaming in the current timeline has made it last for a shorter period of time. The issue I brought up, or shed a light to, was the lack of communities in modern titles. While saying that it is amongst the many problems video games in terms of longevity faces nowadays. Well, another point that sparked into my mind was the heavy usage of wikis in games, which are readily available. This was totally planned right from the get-go, going back while I was writing the script for my last video, and not at all because I was struggling to find a starting point for this particular script. Anywho, the reason why video games in general are starting to feel dull lately is again not for the reasons what most gamers might say they are for. It is simply a byproduct of our own demand. They are not mass producing these games because it isn't profitable. People do play those, no matter how small that number is. It is more than enough to generate a bit of profit to those companies, which is what they are after. Enough cash to keep that cycle running, to keep churning out mundane titles to keep themselves afloat so they can continue bamboozling kids into playing their games. I can ramble for a long time about how the problem doesn't lie just at the feet of greedy publishers who exploit the developers, but us, the consumers too, indirectly playing a huge role in that part. But we have a different topic to tackle with this video, and by we, I mean me. And boy oh boy, is it a convoluted one that I can't wrap my head around. It is not complicated by any means, and that's what makes it so frustrating. Much like the situation in which wikis, guides, tutorials, or whatever have you are used by the majority of us. To get past that frustrating level and the irritating feeling that it brings with it. It isn't a huge issue, or an issue at all, that is discussed by the masses, or even brought up while critiquing the current gaming climate. Yet, I think that it's the major reason why video games die so easily these days. Generally speaking, or looking on the surface level, I usually prefer the advantages that the advancements easily accessible and widespread internet brought to the whole gaming scene. I am glad we are past those tricky stage full of uncertainties and unknown issues. And even though there are bountiful of new hurdles that have arose, I would still prefer this than what we had in the past. With that being said, one of the disadvantages that came with it, which is, ironically, the ease of usage that is so common with anything related to the internet. That being the spiked emergence of player helping wikis. Not an easy feature or service to judge, as I love to use it in various video games, which leads to me exploiting it, as I get way too lazy for my own good, making it my go-to function rather than being a backup option. It being just mere seconds away from us to rely on for basically anything makes it a double-edged sword. The modern tools that it offers are generally very enticing at first glance, but hides detrimental side effects after prolonged exposure, as getting help or using those sites or videos as a means of guidance to make the whole process more smoother does sound like an amazing quality to have, as no one likes to be stuck in a video game. There is the annoyance that the whole situation brings with it, and then there is that shame of not being good enough to beat a game, and the judgmental remarks that comes after it. It's a very unpleasant scenario to be in, and no one finds joy in being dropped into a spot like that. So, it makes sense why people tend to give in to use those aforementioned tools in the search for a solution, in the hopes to get themselves away from that troublesome state of mind. But that's where the problem starts to arise, leading to the predicament which brings in hordes of issues. It always starts with using them, which turns into being dependent on them. I used to rely entirely on those sites once I discovered something like that even existed. As in the past, there was no other option. If you weren't able to get past something in a game, for whatever reason, it's either move on to a different game or somehow, through sheer willpower or luck, blast through that tough stage. So, if given the option, I would typically opt for that feature to make the overall situation more preferable to my liking. Still, I do see the charm in not using any sort of help while playing a game. Yes, it seems like the sensible choice to make, as it saves your precious time. But it is what decreases the lifespan of a video game. All those idle periods is a testament to our patience. Not letting the frustration to take control of our emotion and not being afraid to make mistakes and learn from it. Avoiding those makes everything feel streamlined and formulaic. Being way too methodical with your playthrough takes away one of the primal aspects of playing a video game in the first place. Following a predetermined path isn't why we like this medium. We play video games to take control of the character, to do things our way and in a fashion that other media formats can't provide. And abiding everything like a strict rule doesn't bode well together. The interactive part of it gets taken away at that moment. It's basically like watching a movie with a guideline in your hand to keep up with the things that are happening in the screen. The uniqueness that comes with our faults while making a judgment and trying to improvise from that point onward is thrown out of the window, which is one of the best things about playing games. It doesn't feel something of your own anymore, reducing one of the vital facets of a video game, immersion. It isn't your journey when you're following a guide to get the best outcome. It's just trivialized to a tedious chore. Yes, that means you're bound to stumble upon a muddled up scene, remaining there for an unforeseen and unforgivingly painful amount of time, where nothing will seem to work on your side. And that is what I yearn for, and a direction I choose to follow while playing majority of the video games in my library, getting across without any assistance and all through the means of my own merit. The rewarding feeling that comes with overcoming an obstacle that felt impossible at one moment is immensely fulfilling. It makes up for all those countless hours that felt like they were wasted. However, those moments get totally ignored, as we choose to just look for an easier route when a situation like that arises, rather than working our mind around it to find the answer. Still, we are not the one to blame. It, being so convenient and within reach at all moments, plays a huge part in that role, as most of the time, it is a subconscious decision that hands us with instant results, as they do have a handful of benefits and can be beneficial and helpful to the player if used in a moderate amount, which is rarely the case when it comes to the majority who decide to use it. Hence, the abundance of those type of videos, guides, and dedicated websites catering to the player, which, as previously said, aren't inherently bad. They are basically trying to help the one in need. Using all those services for minor inconveniences or to search for an obscure item is never going to be an issue. It's when you dump down every ounce of your faith in them. That's when the trouble emerges, guiding you to the early grave of the game that you are playing, steering that title to a premature death, stealing away potential memorable memories which could have been made from all those unfortunate outcomes. Even with this whole shebang, there are so many downsides to be mentioned, like how the surprise element is totally ruined if you watch a beginner's guide-esque video or consistently peruse gaming-related wikis. And another point being that the more time you spend with the game, the more you get out of the game, giving you the opportunity or increasing the chances of discovering a hidden secret. But rather than waiting for those moments to pop up, we are on the constant move to complete it and move on to a different title, as the oversaturated market leans towards making people focus on binging rather than taking their time with it, which is an entirely separate mess of a situation that has its own after effect on gaming that I might get into someday later. But for now, yeah, I guess, question mark?